I was saying, y'all, it's your boy Rico from StreetScores, man. And I know I'm late, but I'm here with the full review and breakdown of what just went down yesterday in that Commanders versus Steelers game, man. We were millimeters and 1 point away from winning, dog. The Washington Commander lost versus the Steelers, every position group breakdown. We got to talk about Olamide, St. Juice, Zach Ertz, everybody. Was this Jayden Daniels' worst game? Wide receiver drops, no yak Zach, offensive line struggles, refs. We're going to talk about all of that and more, but before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Appreciate y'all for supporting every video. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up to the live stream yesterday. I know that was a tough loss to witness in live action, but I appreciate all of y'all in the streams, man. Shouts out to everybody that donated, especially. Shouts out to everybody that liked the video and the stream and everything. Really appreciate y'all. Shouts out to all of y'all that were in the chat. Even though it was an L, y'all made it a really fun experience, so I really appreciate y'all for that. But let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. And y'all know, man, we're going to go position group by position group. So we're going to talk about the quarterbacks first, then the running backs and the wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, then the entire defense, then the defensive line, linebackers, corners, safety, special teams, all of that. So make sure you stay tuned. I already know this video is going to end up probably more than likely being over an hour long like it typically is. But, man, I ain't going to lie. I still feel like we're the better team. Even after going back and looking at the highlights and everything, we really shot ourselves in the foot that game, man. Like, I really feel like we sold that game. I still walk away like, say, in a hypothetical 7-game playoff series like they do in the NBA, I feel like we would come out the victor against the Steelers in that situation. Especially, I mean, we also got to think about the fact, too. Let's take a step back and think about the fact that these guys traded for Preston Smith and Mike Williams. They had immediate impacts. I mean, Preston Smith defensively, of course, yes, but Mike Williams literally had the game-winning touchdown. The guy we traded for didn't even play. I mean, it's just so many small margins of error, and they just made a huge difference in that game. We were one play away from winning that game. We were like a couple of millimeters away from winning that game with the whole Zach Ertz thing. And I feel like the refs hated on us right there. But again, we shot ourselves in the foot. The refs never give us 50-50 calls on the field. You know, whenever they go back to the replay, it's like, oh, it's inconclusive evidence. But on the field, we never get the 50-50 calls, always going to the other team. So we never get the benefit from the call stands because we don't have enough evidence to decide either way. We just never get that benefit. Also, Olamide Zaccheaus literally gave the Steelers 7 points thanks to you. Thank you for that. The Steelers had 2 weeks to prepare for us as well. They had an entire bye week while we just came from a dogfight against the Giants where we sustained even some injuries in that game. So I also want to point out the fact that, like, you know, 2 weeks of a bye week, they have a chance to prepare for us strategically. That, like, that's a strategic advantage as well. And I can see some people saying that's just an excuse. But against the Giants, our starting right tackle got hurt. And our starting kicker. Now, granted, our starting kicker, it didn't even necessarily matter. I love Austin Cyborg, but Zane, that boy Zane went out there and made some kicks, man. But our starting right tackle was out, getting hurt against the Giants. And then Trent Scott had to step up and play right tackle for us. And Jayden Daniels was under a lot of pressure from that right side. And you can say whatever you want, but if we were like the Steelers and we had a bye week last week, we would have been a far healthier team. Marshall Lattimore wouldn't have played, but at least we would have had our starting right tackle, maybe a couple of other players. And again, the margins were so small that maybe just the difference of going from Trent Scott to Andrew Wiley at right tackle would have made a world of a difference. Or even Tyler Biotish having to come out the game for a few snaps because of a finger injury. Maybe if he had a chance to heal it last week instead of going against the Giants. So I'm not trying to make up a bunch of excuses. I'm trying to point out the fact that the margins were so small, and I'm explaining why I still feel like we're the better team. The Steelers were given every advantage in this situation other than having the home crowd, and even then they packed the stadium out, but that's not really their fault. That's not an excuse either. But all in all, And we're going to talk about this throughout the video. I'm going to bring this up several times, but I'm going to explain why I'm very optimistic about this team moving forward. And I feel like this was a great battle test. And while I'm thinking about it, dog, before we even dive into every single position group, we're going to start with Cliff Kingsbury first in the overall offense. Everybody named Zach on this team needs to explain themselves, man. You got no Yak Zach in Zach Ertz, and then you also have Olamide Zacchaeus. I know it's pronounced Zacchaeus, but it still looks like Zach. Initially, Z-A-C-H, when you're first saying it, when you're spelling it out and everything like that. So everybody with Zach just wanted to sell it yesterday. Now let's start with the injuries. Of course, like I mentioned just briefly, Tyler Biadasz had an ankle injury, but he ended up returning at some point. He's been dealing with another injury that he even was dealing with against the Giants and things like that. Michael Dieter came in at center, but then Tyler Biadasz came back at a certain point. And then also, apparently, Benjamin St-Juste dislocated his finger during this game. Now, let's talk about the offense of Cliff Kingsbury. Now, first of all, we went 3 and out like the first 2 possessions, and that was crazy. That just felt really weird. I didn't know what that was. That was ugly. I wasn't used to that. I didn't like the way that felt. I know the Steelers have one of the best defense in the NFL, but boy, that just felt weird. And it really sucked too, because you could tell the Commanders loved it, like Cliff Kingsbury in this offense loved to go up tempo, but we weren't getting enough first downs to go up tempo early on to the game, so we kind of had to just chill for a little bit. But hey, shouts out to Pittsburgh for gifting us basically our first touchdown, even though the fake punt should have worked. The guy was wide open. It worked to perfection, up all the way up to the point where the guy just simply didn't catch the ball. But we appreciated that, because that kind of got our offense kicked into like a gear. We couldn't get nothing going. I don't even think we had a first down until we ended up scoring a touchdown after that fake punt. So I'm happy that we made them pay for that. But yeah, man, I mean, offensively, overall, there were high moments, there were low moments. I mean, you could just tell that our offensive line was getting whooped by their defensive line, so it seemed like Jayden Daniels struggled more because of it. It seemed like Cliff Kingsbury had to, like, change the way he calls plays because of it and things like that. It seemed like a lot of what we were doing was trying to make up for the fact that our offensive line was getting beat by that Steelers defensive line. No real excuses, but I mean, it's there. Like, when you look at the tape, our offensive line, Jayden Daniels is rushing through his clock. Cliff Kingsbury isn't even calling the same usual Jayden Daniels, you stay back in the pocket and scan the field type of plays that he normally did. It was a lot more quick stuff, trying to run the ball, confuse them, get them moving sideline to sideline. And also, shouts out to Patrick Queen, man. While I'm thinking about it, before I forget it, even though I should really bring this up during the Jayden Daniels part of this video, we'll get there soon, but he made some elite open field tackles on Jayden Daniels, dog. Like, Jayden Daniels, the difference between him getting like 3 yards and like 30 was literally Patrick Queen making some elite open field tackles. So shouts out to him, man. Respect to you. There was a reason we wanted you in free agency, and you ended up going to the Steelers, and boy, the Steelers, I'm pretty sure they're happy about it, because that's probably even just another margin where if Patrick Queen doesn't make a couple of those open field tackles he makes, maybe we win the game just because of that. But I mean, Lord have mercy, our offense was out of rhythm at so many certain points in that game, so many possessions in that game. It was crazy, man. And it's just the first quarter period, there wasn't any real offense. Through that first 8 possessions of the first quarter, 6 of them ended in 3 and outs, and that was 3 apiece for each team. And at the same time, the only time we scored a touchdown was off of the fake punt, and so that just is what it is, man. And it was just ugly. I mean, I don't even really know where to start with the offense, man. I'm looking at my notes, and it's just like, it was just ugly. Our offense literally couldn't get anything going for like the first quarter and a half until the Steelers gave us, outside of the Steelers giving us that fake punt. But I saw that Cliff Kingsbury also started to make some other adjustments. Like, he used max protection. Once we finally got like a decent completion, it was some max protection involved. And we don't usually typically run max protection. That was definitely an adjustment to what the Steelers were doing to our offensive line. So that was one way that affected us as well. Also, shouts out to Zane Gonzalez, because he made a 48-yarder. You know, typically we don't ask Austin Cyborg to make kicks that far. He's made a couple of 50-yarders, but typically we get it closer than that for him. So that was just even a difference from this offense compared to other times our offense has gone out there against opposing defenses. Typically, they don't have to kick from that far. But then, right before the first half ended, right before the end of the second quarter, we started on our own, 5-6 yard line. We went 94 yards down all the way to score a touchdown, chewed up the entire clock, remaining before we went to halftime. I mean, that was the perfect drive. I would argue that was our most impressive drive of the entire day. 15 plays, 94 yards, 8 runs, 7 passes, 5 minutes and 23 seconds chewed up clock, and only left them with 16 seconds. That was the Cliff Kingsbury and the Commanders offense that I knew very well, man. That was beautiful. And the fact that we went into the third quarter knowing that we would get the ball back after doing that, I mean, it just felt like we had so much momentum coming out of the halftime, man. I thought we would have it, bro. I really did think we would have it. Also, I do want to point out the fact that the Commanders have 6 touchdowns in 2-minute situations so far this season. They had 7 all last season. Just to let you know, I felt like that needed to be pointed out. So the difference between Eric Bieniemy to Cliff Kingsbury, and just, I mean, also we got to point out, it's not just that too. It's also Sam Howell to Jayden Daniels. It's also, you know, Noah Brown compared to whoever our second best receiver you could argue was last year. So there's a lot of reasons, but that's a big stat that shows you the difference in what this team is doing right now. Also, shouts out to Dan Quinn, because those 2-minute situations really matter. And remember, early on in the offseason, we started training camp off with 2-minute drills, 4-minute drills, 4th down situations, red zone drills, and things like that. We started immediately in the offseason with that, and it's starting. You're seeing it pay off. So I'm really happy about that for sure. And then the first play of the third quarter was a 54-yard bomb to Terry McLaurin, and I really hate the fact that Terry McLaurin keeps getting caught from behind, because especially from a guy like Joey Porter, who's not known as a burner. But Terry McLaurin still had a great day, so I'm not gonna gripe on that too much. But that just seems to be a consistent thing. I don't know if Terry McLaurin's not as fast as he used to be, because I remember against the Eagles, his rookie season, he was running right by people for touchdowns and things like that. So I don't know what happened, but that was still great though. And then Jeremy McNichols had a touchdown run after that. I really appreciated how we started the third quarter, especially after how we ended the second quarter. It felt like we had so much momentum. It looked like we finally figured something out with the Steelers defense. That's what I was saying in the live stream. Let's get it going. And then we just fell apart. I mean, we started with great field positioning after the next Steelers drive, I believe, and then we still went 3 and out. I mean, we were starting with great field positioning, and it just incomplete passes, holding, or whatever offensive penalties we were having. It was so frustrating. We had drops all over the place, and you just can't blame Cliff Kingsbury for all of those drops, bro. This is a completely different game if people just don't drop the ball. But Cliff Kingsbury also deserves his fair share of blame, because I remember we had a crucial 3rd and 16. He called the worst play of all time on that. We ended up losing even more yards. Ended up being 4th and 20 something, having to pump. It was just crazy. I mean, when we needed our offense to really just, man, all we need is 3 points. All we need is 3 points. They just couldn't get it for us, man. They just really couldn't get it. And so our offense started with drives at our own 46 and the Pittsburgh 42. And after our first touchdown that we had, and we only scored 3 points from those drives. I just want to make sure that's known. That was crazy. Starting from our own 46 and the Pittsburgh 42, and only scored 3 points from those 2 drives combined. But just to let you know, after the game, our offense officially now ranks 10th in yards per play, 10th in net yards, 9th in first downs, 8th in third down percentage, 10th in rushing net, 9th in passing net, 10th in number of points, and 10th in number of time of possession. My fault. So just to let you know, that's where the Commanders are 10 games into the season. Maybe not as elite as we thought, or at least as we were a couple of weeks ago, but still really good. Also, the Commanders offense came in with only 12 3-and-out possessions on the year in 9 games. And then today we had 5. More than half of what we had all season. I think that really puts everything into perspective here. Also, I feel like it needs to be noted that we had 10 drop passes. We were missing 2 starting offensive line for a lot of that game. We were missing our starting running back, and we still put up 27 against an elite Steelers defense. Because I really want to point out the fact that the Steelers are one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, and they have allowed less than 15 points per game before we nearly doubled that against them with 27. The only other team that scored as many points as us were the Colts in Week 4, where they scored 27 as well. So we have matched the offense that has scored the most points against the Steelers all season. So I know we want to blame the offense for a lot of things, but we also should blame the defense quite a bit of it as well. We're gonna get to that too, but it felt like at certain points in the game it was it's the defense's fault, then it was the offense's fault, then it was the defense's fault, then it was the offense's fault, and the special teams made some plays, but also the special teams messed up because Olamide Zaccheaus' special teams coverage was elite. You know, it's when we were punting and kicking the ball, elite. But returning the ball, Olamide Zaccheaus sold that completely. If it weren't for Olamide Zaccheaus, our special teams unit would have been the most consistent and the best side of the ball that we had all game. Now moving on to the quarterback, Jayden Daniels had an interesting game because, I mean, the best way to describe it is that he showed you why he was in the MVP conversation some plays, and then he showed you also that maybe he still has some rookie things that he needs to work out when under pressure, when under constant duress, when his clock is being rushed and he knows his offensive line can't hold up against an opposing defensive line for very long, and when they game plan against you perfectly, because it still is blitzed more in this game than they blitzed all season. So that was like a deliberate game plan to throw Jayden Daniels off. So he showed some of the flashes, but then also at the same time, he showed some of the inconsistencies and why he's a rookie. But still, I mean, at the end of the day, if this is the worst of Jayden Daniels, we're going to win a lot of games and be very successful because we still should have won this game in spite of all of that. That's my main point. But let's dive into it. After the first quarter, Jayden Daniels was only 3 of 6 for 22 yards and no rushing yards and a sack. Again, the Steelers did everything they could to game plan Jayden Daniels' legs out of the game. And even the situations where Jayden Daniels could have had a lot of yards, Patrick Queen was there to mess it up and make an elite open field tackle that would cause Jayden Daniels, instead of gaining like 30 or more yards, it would only be like 3 or 4. So thanks for that. Of course, pressure was definitely getting to Jayden Daniels. It also looked like his hand or his shoulder was hurt at some point. But I mean, he had some throws that were behind people. It was all kinds of stuff. But then that Luke McCaffrey, it was 3rd and 4. That Luke McCaffrey throw, when we really needed it, was big time. I think that was right before the half. We ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. And shouts out to Utah Commander for pointing this out. Jayden Daniels is an unreal quarterback. This was an ugly game, and he just quietly drove down the field and burned a ton of clock to eventually score. I hope fans realize how clutch that was. And that is a great point, because before that last drive, before we ended the first half, to end the second quarter to go into halftime, Jayden Daniels was flustered. He was inaccurate. He was missing a lot of stuff. He wasn't reading the field perfectly. And then for him to just clutch up when we needed him most, at least halftime wise, first half wise when we needed him most, not all game wise, but first half wise when we needed him most, he stepped up and delivered on a beautiful drive. But at halftime, the guy had a 56.25% completion percentage. And just to let you know, a lot of that was dropped. So don't blame that all on Jayden Daniels. But he only had 78 passing yards, no touchdowns, of course, no interception, 1 sack, only 4 rushing yards, and a 69.3 passer rating at halftime. Just to let you know, it was an ugly start. And again, you could blame Jayden Daniels. You could blame a lot of people for that. Pittsburgh, again, had blitzed Jayden Daniels more than they've shown all season. If you look at any of their games previously, they were doing, I mean, you could just tell there was a deliberate effort to keep Jayden Daniels in the box, to keep him in the pocket, not allow him to move, man. You could just tell that they were really trying to fluster him. They were like, just fluster Jayden Daniels and dare anybody else to make a play. And at times, guys made plays. Terry McLaurin made a lot of plays, so I really appreciated that. But man, I mean, that first half was a little ugly to watch literally until that very last possession. Because, again, the other 7 points we had were gifted by the Steelers themselves. So we only really it felt like we only earned and marched down the field for 10 of our points. But, man, coming back from halftime, the very first play, Jayden Daniels hitting Terry McLaurin for 54 yards. That was amazing. The throw was only like 13 yards, and then Terry McLaurin did the rest. That was beautiful, man. And then later on, I think it was that same drive, 3rd and 9, Jayden Daniels hit Terry McLaurin for a big first down pickup, which eventually led to us finally scoring a touchdown on that drive, man. And so Jayden Daniels started to pick it up. He looked way better the second half than the first half. He still wasn't as great as we typically see in the second half, but the second half was definitely better. They definitely made some adjustments. He probably got that little iPad or whatever that tablet is and looked at what the Steelers defense was trying to do to him and then made adjustments to it. And then that throw to Noah Brown was insane, bro. The throw to Noah Brown that didn't count because of offsetting penalties was absolutely insane. And I will argue that wasn't really even a penalty. I think it was Tyler Biadasz that was called for a penalty. I don't think that should have been offset in penalties. But either way, that was crazy, bro. And then later on, Jayden Daniels threw a super dot to Terry for 28 yards on, like, right at the sideline, like dropped it in the perfect bucket, slot fade, man. I mean, pressure coming at him. Terry McLaurin isn't even that open. It was absolutely ridiculous of a throw that was, man. But then later on in the game, when we really needed it, he missed Luke McCaffrey on a deep shot that probably maybe would have even been like a game-sealing touchdown. So that sucked, man. That really, really sucked. And then, I mean, we were in a situation where it was 2-minute warning. We had all 3 timeouts. We were all like, all right, this is what Jayden Daniels does. This is where he makes his money. Can they stop him? Can he make a play? All of that type of stuff. And inevitably, I felt like he did almost what he could have done. Like, other than the missing Luke McCaffrey on that one big throw, I mean, I felt like he was doing enough to win the game. We just got to talk about Zach Ertz very soon when we get to the tight end part of this. But also, I want to point out the fact that this is the first time this season that Jayden Daniels has finished with a negative EPA. Just to let you know, he finished with a negative 0.7 EPA per play and a negative 2.6 total EPA. That is the worst by far this season, and the only time this season he's been negative, man. And again, he was off. You can blame the receivers for drops. You can blame the offensive line for not blocking well and giving them time. You can blame Cliff Kingsbury with some of the play calls, but he was also inaccurate. But again, if this is Jayden Daniels' floor, we're going to win a lot of games and definitely compete for some Super Bowls, because the fact that we went against arguably the best defense in the NFL, Jayden Daniels had one of his worst games, and we still had a chance to win, still should have won the game. Mind you, Luke dropped the first down. De'Ami Brown dropped the touchdown. De'Ami Brown dropped the third down conversion. Zach Ertz was dropping passes as well. He didn't get the yardage we needed for a fourth down conversion. I felt like he should have easily have had that. You got to get more depth on your route, or you're at least as big as you are, got to be able to fight for that last yard. Then also on top of that, the refs hated with the spot as well and the review, but it is what it is. So Jayden Daniels, of course, did not have a good game, I would say, overall, but he still showed you elite flashes. And I hate people bringing up his passing chart, because a lot of these were drops. And he was under pressure a lot, and I feel like people definitely needed to point that out. Shouts out to Jayden Daniels in his press conference. He said a lot of interesting things, but the thing that was the most important to me, the thing that I cared the most about, is that he said, quote, "I don't like losing," unquote. And it was literally that simple, and I'm happy that he has that mentality, and we're going to move on. We're going to learn from this game, move on, and keep on winning. And you would think, from the way that people are talking about him right now, the way that some people are talking about Jayden Daniels is trash, even some people in our fan base, you would think he went out there and threw all sorts of interceptions. Jared Goff just won a game throwing 5 interceptions. So I know we can blame Jayden Daniels for some of the reason that we lost this game, but some people are definitely overreacted. Jared Goff just won a game throwing 5 interceptions. I don't want to hear nothing. Absolutely nothing, man. So he had a few misses, but the game wasn't as bad as some people are acting like, dog. It really wasn't, especially since I went back and looked. There was some throws that Jayden Daniels made that just simply weren't caught, that if those catches were made, then it's a completely different story, especially when you're looking at passing charts and advanced stats and things like that. And again, if this is Jayden Daniels' floor, we're going to win a lot of games. I completely agree with my boys at Ref the District. He said, if this is Jayden Daniels' floor, we are not excited enough. And I completely agree, man. If this is as bad as it gets for Jayden Daniels, we are going to cook, and we should be even more optimistic about it. Then running back wise, I mean, Austin Eckler gave it his all, man. He had some great runs throughout the game. Like one 10-yard run he had early in the game, like in the early second quarter, late first quarter, or something like that. It was definitely in the first half. That was fantastic, making people miss. He had like 2 rushing touchdowns off rip. Shouts out to him just in the first half. And then even like Jerry McNichols had a rushing first down, and Chris Rodriguez, he had a rushing touchdown, my fault. Chris Rodriguez had a couple of good runs as well, but you can tell this offense definitely misses Brian Robinson. There are times where it's just like, man, we miss Brian Robinson. Can't wait to get him back, but take your time. We do not want to rush him back, because we're going to need you for the long run as far as this playoff runs go. And then wide receiver wise, I mean, it felt like Noah Brown was our savior for a second. Like, the first half was like the Noah Brown show for a lot of it. And then Terry McLaurin eventually took over and looked like the #1 receiver. And then Noah Brown started dropping passes. And then that's when it just looked like Terry McLaurin was the only receiver that really cared in that game at a certain point. Luke McCaffrey had at least one drop that I remember vividly, where it went straight to his hands off of a Jayden Daniels elite throw. Noah Brown had some. The tight end Zach Ertz had one. Olamide Zaccheaus had drops on top of muff punts. We're going to definitely get to him. But man, Noah Brown started the game. He drew back-to-back pass interferences on Pittsburgh, bro. That is what he does. I mean, this guy draws pass interferences better than anybody else I could think of, man. He probably is leading the NFL in it right now, because even Ian Hartitz, who's not a Commanders fan at all, completely neutral analyst, he tweeted at 2:02 p.m., like in the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, he said, what best wide receiver in the NFL? Justin Jefferson. Best wide receiver at drawing defensive pass interference in the NFL? Noah Brown. So even people outside of Commanders land, the Commanders fan base, Commanders reporters are even noticing how often Noah Brown forces pass interferences. Also, Nikki Javala provided this stat. She said opponents have called for defensive pass interference 6 times against the Commanders. Noah Brown has been the intended target for 5 of them. I believe we ended up with 7, because I believe somebody else ended up forcing the defensive pass interference later on, maybe Terry McLaurin or something like that. but Lord had mercy, that's insane. Then Terry McLaurin with 422 officially passed Jerry Smith with 421 for 6th all-time in franchise history in receptions. And again, that was before we even got to the second half. So Terry McLaurin is well past that. Also, shouts out to Luke McCaffrey though. When we needed him in the first half, that 23-yard catch was amazing. Good job getting open and making the catch there. But outside of that, some drop passes. De'Ami Brown, wide open drop touchdown. The only reason I'm not complaining about it too much is because we ended up scoring the touchdown anyway soon after that, a couple of plays after that. But Lord have mercy, that drop touchdown was insane. The only reason I'm personally mad is because I have Jayden Daniels on my fantasy team, and that would have helped me out a lot, and I'm probably going to lose my fantasy team because of that. So thanks a lot, De'Ami Brown. But then again, coming out of halftime, Terry McLaurin caught fire, man. 54-yard catch, and then a couple of plays later, 3rd and 10 to get a first down off of another slant. They just could not cover Terry McLaurin on slants. Anytime Terry McLaurin ran a slant, he was just unguardable, bro. And it led to a Jeremy McNichols touchdown run, so I really appreciated that. But then Olamide Zaccheaus had a big drop after a huge Austin Eckler return, and that was like, it was the Steelers scored a touchdown. Austin Eckler had a huge return right after that, and then Olamide Zaccheaus had a drop, and we ended up going 3 and out, I believe, on that possession. So thanks a lot for that, Olamide Zaccheaus. Thank you very much. Even outside of the muff punts, you were just bad. And then again, that throw to Noah Brown, great catch, great throw, elite throw from Jayden Daniels. One of the best throws I've seen all year from any quarterback on the run, and everything to the sideline was insane. Again, it didn't count, but great catch there by Noah Brown, I gotta admit. And of course, Terry McLaurin, man. If we could just find a way to get you that extra gear to where these plays where you can turn them into touchdowns rather than just long passing plays, chunk plays, that would be really nice, man. That would be really nice. And then Noah Brown had another great catch that didn't count as well. That really sucked. And then Terry McLaurin had a great catch for 28 yards after a Jeremy Chin interception. And then I started to wonder for the rest of the game, where was Terry McLaurin? I don't know if I'm tripping, but it just felt like Terry McLaurin was just not involved in the offense at all in the fourth quarter. And he was having such a great game before then. And then it just seemed like in the fourth quarter, I don't know. I'm going to have to really watch the tape for this one. This is the one I got to go to the all-22. Was it because the Steelers focused on stopping him, started double-teaming him, shifting the safety his way? He just wasn't open, or were we just not looking at him? Because he ended up finishing with 5 receptions for 113 yards off of 6 targets. And I don't believe he got a single target in the fourth quarter. And I don't believe he at least got a single catch in the fourth quarter. So Lord had mercy. And Noah Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, when we needed them most, looked like free agents that were available in the offseason for no reason. I'm not down on Noah Brown to the point where I regret signing them. But boy, they look like, oh, there's a reason that they were even available for us to pick up when we did. But also, I want to point out the fact that Terry McLaurin, shouts out to Commander's Realm for this, even with a down week last week where he had 2 touchdowns, but he still only had 19 yards total. He is now 3rd in the NFL in receiving yards with 711. He sits behind only Jamar Chase and Justice Jefferson, the 2 best receivers you could argue in the NFL, the 2 LSU boys. And shouts out to LSU for gifting us Jayden Daniels as well. Now moving on to the tight ends. I mean, as a Georgia fan, it sickens me to see LSU dominating like this, a receiver and quarterback. But it is what it is. Either way, moving on to tight ends. Shouts out to Zach Ertz. I mean, I don't want to say a bad game overall, but like when we needed him most, he just wasn't there. It's really annoying, bro. But 743 pass Greg Olsen for number 6 all-time in history of receptions, and that was early on in the game, like the first drive of the game or something like that. Just to let you know, Ertz also accomplished the feat in his 161st game. Olsen accomplished his feat in his 199th game, so that also does need to be pointed out that Zach Ertz deserves some credit for that. But man, I feel like Tan Top Podcast worded it perfectly. Zach Ertz is a great security blanket, but good Lord, there's 0 yards after catch ability there. 0. He had several in that game where he would catch the ball for 9 yards and still didn't get the first down. But man, shouts out to John Bates. It looked like he was ready to fight at one point in that game. But then Zach Ertz was dropping passes on top of that. So you can't be known as a security blanket with no yak, and then you're also dropping passes. So what are you out there for? What are you out there for? I mean, it was like a perfectly thrown ball on a slant. Jayden Daniels throws it right to his chest, and he dropped it. And I believe either we ended up scoring 3 points instead of scoring a touchdown on that drive as well. So that drop was literally the difference in 4 points. We ended up losing by 1 point. So thanks a lot there, Zach Ertz. Before we even talk about the 4th down play, and then talking about the 4th down play, when we needed just a little bit of yak, when we needed it the most on that 4th and 9, And it's time. I mean, it's to the point where really, honestly, Ben Sinnott, who was Mr. Yards after catch in the preseason, he needs to start getting more looks, man. I mean, I believe Zach Ertz honestly did have that first down there. But either way, bro, you had like 3 or 4 9-yard catches today. Like 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 4th and 10, 9 yards, catch the ball there, don't get anything else. You are too big to be doing that, dog. There's no way these guys smaller than you are stopping you from getting yards after catch. You got to either use speed or strength, something, angles, leverage something to get these first downs, bro. I think he literally, if you go back and watch the highlights, that man had like literally 3 or 4 catches of 9 yards. Like just 1st and 10, 9 yards. 2nd and 10, 9 yards. And on that 4th and 10, we needed him 9 yards. That he just, no yak. None. Couldn't get a first down to save his life in that game, man. But also, shouts out to Tan Top Podcast for pointing this out. Zach Ertz failing to catch the ball clearly past the first down marker is ridiculous. Run just past the sticks, turn around, catch the ball. Allowing your momentum to make you short on the first down marker is absolutely stupid and completely ridiculous, especially for a veteran like that. Also, shouts out to my boy Mark Bullock. He said, maybe I'm wrong, but it looked pretty clear that Ertz caught the ball at the first down marker. Terrible spot, worst review. I agree there. Definitely agree. I definitely felt like he had it, but I'm still going to blame him because why are you not making that definitive, like to where the refs can't even control it? We're going to talk about that soon, but shouts out to Chase Daniel, not even a Commanders fan, neutral national analyst saying, okay, that's a horrible spot in Washington. What am I missing? Even he was questioning. Even Skip Bayless tweeted, when Zach Ertz first caught the ball, he had a first down. Plain and simple. And then all of the replies are saying, yeah, that's just a terrible call. That's absolutely a shame. And these are non-Commanders fans talking here too. So a lot of people feel like we got robbed. Probably everybody except for Steelers fans feel like we got robbed. And if you want to look at it right here, look at this replay screenshot right here of exactly where he was. I mean, this is literally a first down. Am I tripping? Like, am I like literally just tripping? Is that not a first down? Again, I don't want to spend too much time on it, so we're going to go ahead and keep it pushing. But man, Zach Ertz, again, he had that terrible drop on 2nd and 11 with 3 minutes left in the third when we were in the red zone, the difference between 3 points and 7 points. So he was dropping passes, and then when he did make catches, he had 0 yards after the catch, man. Even on the play when we needed it the most. And like I always say, the refs always deserve some blame when it comes to us, bro, because the refs just don't like us. I don't know what we're doing. We never get 50-50 calls. They're always selling us. But at the same time, we need to be good enough to where we don't even allow games to fall into the hands of refs making bad decisions and bad calls in the first place. And that 4th down catch was a prime example of what I mean. Yeah, the refs hate it. Yes, it was a bad spot. Yes, it was a bad review. But if Zach Ertz, big self, just doesn't get the yards definitively to where the refs can't even affect the play, then we aren't even in this situation, and we more than likely win because we're marching down the field to get a field goal. We're probably even immediately in the field goal range right then and there. So again, Zach Ertz, I blame you more so than anything else. But also shouts out to Dan Quinn because he spoke to the media today after practice. He said the Commanders have a call with the league office later on today about why the ball was spotted short on 4th and 9. So Dan Quinn is also clearly upset and perplexed about the situation, man. Let's get it. Also, offensive line wise, overall just a bad game. I mean, you could just tell that Trent Scott was starting in place of Andrew Wiley. You could just feel it. Jayden Daniels, poor self, felt it. He had to deal with it all game. Even Samuel Cosme, like, it was making mistakes. He like completely missed Patrick Queen, which allowed Austin Eckler to get tackled in the backfield, destroyed for like a -4 or 5 yard loss. It was all insane stuff, man. Again, Tyler Biadasz had to leave, and then he came back in, and even when he came back in, you could tell he was banged up because he was getting beat. He got a penalty. He allowed Jayden Daniels to get sacked. I mean, it was just bad, bro. I mean, Cameron Hayward made Nick Allegretti look crazy sometimes. That was a sack on Jayden Daniels as well. It was just ugly. Brandon Coleman had his worst game of the season, I would say. He was out there struggling against Highsmith. Highsmith was in the backfield very often against him, man. But I'm not going to lie. The offensive line looked way better that last offensive drive before the halftime. Like that, I feel like there was a strong correlation between our offensive line finally blocking and then us going on a 94-yard touchdown drive. And then when we came back out of halftime, they just forgot how to block again. Now, granted, the Steelers defense and the defensive line specifically is really good, arguably elite, but golly, man, that offensive line has to be better. I mean, I'm gonna have to look at the all-22 to really break down who did and didn't have good overall games and things like that, but from what I saw live and then rewatching the highlights, I did not like what our offensive line did today. This was their worst game of the season, I would easily argue. Now moving on to the defensive side of the ball, they started pretty strong, I'm not gonna lie. Like, they forced a 3-and-out on the Steelers' first drive. Deron Payne was very impactful immediately. That was really nice. We felt Deron Payne out there. Also, then later on, the Steelers finally scored a touchdown on a really ugly series because it was pass interference on St. Juste that gave Pittsburgh 14 yards, roughing the pass on Jeremy Chin 15 yards, 7-play, 70-yard drive, and George Pickens making a ridiculous diving 15-yard touchdown catch. That's my Georgia dog there, but man, we got to do a better job of shutting that down. And the Steelers running backs had 27 yards on their first 5 touches to start the game, dog. Even after the 3-and-out, that second drive just made up all for it, bruh. But then our defense did a good job of responding, and we were getting some good blitz calls from Joe Witt Jr. We did some good jobs of forcing some 3-and-outs. Frankie Louvu got a sack early into the game, man. And then Olamide Zaccheaus wants to give the Steelers the ball right after a muff punt, and then they ended up scoring 7 points off of that. So thank you very much, Olamide Zaccheaus, for that. And we were down 14-7 just because of that. Thank you, Olamide Zaccheaus. As soon as our defense started to gain some momentum, we were forcing 3-and-out after 3-and-out. There goes Olamide Zaccheaus to basically give the Steelers a free 7 points. But at the same time, Pittsburgh only had 97 yards at halftime, so our defense wasn't playing that bad, man. Shouts out to the defense, man. I mean, we were literally winning at halftime 17-14 because of our defense, plain and simple. Offense deserves some credit for that very last drive, but that is it. That is literally it. But then Pittsburgh, sometime early in the third quarter, ended up putting together a 9-play, 74-yard scoring drive to cut our lead from 24-14 to 24-21 to make it 3 points difference, and that really hurt because our offense also didn't come back out and respond after that as well. And overall, our defense just had a lot of bad tackling. Like the Steelers were getting a lot of yards after catch from George Pickens and everybody, and I hated how much we were playing soft coverage and soft defense and things like that, but that's because we didn't have Marshawn Lattimore out there yet. That's why we traded for him, and I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot of people say that. I'm probably going to say that several times in this video. That is why we traded for Marshawn Lattimore, bruh. You saw it several times in that game against the Steelers, why we needed a Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, Lord had mercy, and it seemed like every touchdown drive they had, especially like the first couple of ones they had, were completely aided by penalties. It just had to be like 2 or 3 Commanders penalties given up that allowed them to even score those touchdowns. So it didn't even feel like their offense was really beating us for real. But man, we had a certain point where our pass coverage and our pass rush started to get together at the same time, man. We were starting to be disruptive. We were doing our thing. I mean, it just seemed like we were doing a really good job of also giving them bad field positioning. At a certain point, Russell Wilson had like a crazy average depth of target because they were just throwing deep bombs and not completing them. And it was just like he had a bad completion percentage, but average depth of target was insane. It was like they were just trying to throw deep shots and run the ball like we expected them to do coming into this game, and our defense looked like it was ready for it. And then George Pickens was getting away with a lot of stuff, bro. Like the face mask where he clearly took whoever that was on our defense mask and like literally turned it while he was stiff arming them was insane. Like it wasn't even just a hand, it was like a grab and then move, bro. It was bad, bro. It was really bad. And then shouts out to Quan Martin because on one of the Steelers drives where they were just moving the ball, we couldn't stop them. Shouts out to Quan Martin for forcing that fumble, stripping the ball, Jeremy Chin to recover it to bail us out, man. And I just really I thought that was the moment where it was like, okay, we can fix this. And then later on, of course, Johnny Newton has the game losing offsides penalty. He's a rookie. That's gonna happen. Ended up losing 28-27 by 1 point. So many little mistakes, but at the same time, I don't want to blame Johnny Newton too much for that because I'm not even sure if we win that game after that. It would have been nice to give Jayden Daniels the opportunity, but based off of what I saw the drive before that, the possession before that where our offense had the ball, we couldn't do nothing. So I don't know why I really would be that optimistic that we could if Johnny Newton didn't go offsides, because we would have started with bad field position and the Steelers were on our side of the field, I believe, like early on, like in the 40s somewhere. So the punt was going going to be crazy. And so I don't know. I don't know. That is it. But moving on to the defensive line specifically, they were holding us a lot and we're getting away with it. So, but again, the ref's never going to call those for us. So we got to, make sure we adjust and play as if we're not going to get holding calls against the opposing team's offensive line, man. But Devon Payne was making plays early in that game, man. Shouts out to him. He had a couple of good plays. He had a few good plays, especially in the first half. He was more impactful in the first half than the second half. And then I believe Fadarian Mathis had a good play in the first half, but I don't remember him even existing shortly after that. I didn't notice him for the rest of the game. But boy, Dante Fowler had himself a game, man. Even outside of the sacks that he had some really good pressures to force Russell Wilson incompletions. So he had a really elite game today as well, man. I definitely think it's time to include Dante Fowler in the Pro Bowl voting right now. You have to, bro. You have to. I mean, Lord have mercy. Other than the offsides penalty he had, where instead of it being 3rd and 8, ended up being 2nd and 3, and I believe the Steelers ended up scoring a touchdown on that. So Dante Fowler, that was on you. But outside of that, that boy was everywhere, man. He was beating double teams. Like that one San Francisco play where he, the Steelers are backed up in their own end zone. San Francisco has great coverage down the field to force an incompletion. Dante Fowler broke a double team to get at Russell Wilson and to force him to make that throw so poorly. And again, this guy had 2 sacks in this game, man. He stepped up big time. So now Dante Fowler has 8.5 sacks in 10 games, y'all. Just in 10 games, he is on pace to have a crazy season right now. This is the 3rd time this season alone that Dante Fowler has had a multi-sack game. I really appreciate him, bro. I really elite free agency signing. I mean, it almost seems like Dante Fowler got to the Washington Commanders and finally remembered that he was a 3rd overall pick in his draft. People forget that, man. He was freakishly talented coming out of college. It just never really panned out the NFL level. I don't know. Maybe he's a late bloomer. I don't know. I really do not know. But man, Johnny Newton had a pretty good game up till that offsides penalty, I would say. Also, later on, Dante Fowler had Russell Wilson for a sack, and then Russell Wilson ended up escaping and making an 11-yard throw, and I believe they ended up scoring points after that, so that sucked as well. But I still believe Dante Fowler had a great game overall. And then again, Johnny Newton, offsides penalty, I'm not going to blame him too much. I'm not going to get on him too much for that. I'm not, it was really bad. And, you deserve to get yelled at and coached up and everything like that. But we move on, man. We move on. We move on. And also, shouts out to Ken Johannesson, because I agree. Johnny Newton is probably feeling horrible at this time. It was a rookie mistake and nothing more. He is going to be a force for the Burgundy and Gold for a long time. I agree. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson for this one. Dante Fowler is on pace for 14 sacks. No Washington pass rusher has managed that many sacks since Dexter Manley and Charles Mann both did back in 1985. The highest sack season in team history is 18.5 by Manley in 1986, 15 in Manley in 1985, 14.5 by Mann in 1985, and 13.5 by Kerrigan in 2014. So it looks like Dante Fowler is on pace to be the 4th best sack season in Commanders franchise history. Also, I didn't necessarily notice this on the live watch or the instant highlight replay. I'm gonna have to look at the all 22 to understand what happened here. But Sheldon Day ended up being our highest graded commander, between both offense and defense, with an 89.9, y'all. Brought off of the practice squad and was our best player according to Pro Football Focus against the Steelers. Terry McLaurin was second with 82.5. Dorrance Armstrong 3rd with a 77.2, Quan Martin 4th with a 72.5, and Noah Brown 5th with a 71.6. But hey, Sheldon Day, 89.9. I gotta go back and look at the tape. I'm only including that because for those of y'all that may go back and watch the all 22, keep a lookout for Sheldon Day, because I'm about to go figure out what happened there as well. Linebacker wise, Frankie Louisville had that sack in the first quarter. I thought he was destined to have an elite game, but I'm not gonna lie, he and Bobby Wagner, I don't know what happened. For the rest of after that, I don't know what happened. This is another one. I'm going to have to look at the all 22 to see what's going on. But I just did not feel like we had Frankie Louisville and Bobby Wagner on our team this game. Other games, early in the season, you could tell they were there. They were like having flashes, but they were also the reason that we were getting beat. Like on screens and stuff, they were the ones that were allowing. It was obvious. And then after that, they were the reason we were winning games. They were like they were making a lot of positive plays. This was like the first game where it seems like they weren't there. Like it wasn't like the Steelers were making plays against them, and it's not like they were making plays against the Steelers like that as well. It was a weird game for those two. Again, because like against the Buccaneers, they were like getting exposed. Like Frankie Luvu and Bobby Wagner were getting exposed on screens, the run game, passing game, beating coverage and things like that. Even against the Giants week 2, they were getting beating coverage quite a bit. So it was like at least you remember they were out there. It was for a bad reason, but you remember they existed. This Steelers game, I don't know. That was like the first game all season. It just felt like those guys didn't even exist, man. And then, of course, cornerback-wise, Benjamin St-Juste started the game with a pass interference, man. And I believe that was the 5th of the season for him already. That was insane. And then the incredible touchdown catch of Noah Benogany by George Pickens for the Steelers' first touchdown. I thought that was pretty good coverage by Noah Benogany. That was just an elite play made by George Pickens, and that's just Russell Wilson just giving his receiver a chance to make the play. But golly, I'm letting you know right now, I'm going to say it again. That's why we traded for Marshawn Lattimore. A lot of the cornerback problems we have right now would be solved by just Marshawn Lattimore just being on the field to take away the other team's best wide receiver. But Sanders still came to play. I wouldn't say he had a perfect game overall, but he came to play. I don't know if y'all saw, but on one of those running plays the Steelers had, he blocked Austin 5 yards backwards, blew him up. And then Najee Harris ended up getting tackled by somebody else, I believe. But that was like, and I wish Mike Sanders still could have completed the play by making the tackle, but he blew up a receiver 5 yards into the backfield once he realized it was a running play. He came to play. He also had good coverage as well. I mean, Mike Sanders still was not playing with y'all. And then he had a big-time stop on Pickens to force a 3 and out. And then right after that was when Olamide Zaccheaus muffed the punt, so thanks a lot for that. Just pretty much erased Mike Sanderstill's whole impact on that play. But Sanderstill did a good job of like making tackles when we needed them before the first down marker a couple of times, because there was one time where Sanderstill and Markin missed a tackle. Him and Quan Martin missed a tackle on George Pickens, which gave Pittsburgh the first down. The catch was before the first down, but then Quan Martin and Mike Sanders still couldn't bring down George Pickens. He ended up getting the first down. But then later on, he made up for it by having that nice coverage play where Russell Wilson tried to throw the ball deep down the sideline, backed up in their own end zone. He looked like a first rounder today. Overall, at times especially. I wouldn't say overall the entire game he looked like it, but in times in that game, he looked like a steal in the second round. And then, of course, 3rd and 8 with 2 minutes left in the game, Benjamin St-Juste gets beat for a 32-yard touchdown by super slow Mike Williams. Super duper slow Mike Williams, dog. Thanks a lot, Benjamin St-Juste. And it's crazy because if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades, and honestly, the tape does sort of agree, but Benjamin St-Juste was our highest graded corner out of all of the corners that play over Mike Sanderstill, Noah Benogany, everybody. And it's just like, he'll be all right for a lot of the game, but he just gives up the worst plays at the worst time. That's his problem. He's not clutch. That's his problem. He's not a terrible corner. He's just seriously unclutch. Because for 80% of the game, you could argue he had better coverage than any other corner we had on our team. But when it mattered most, when the game was on the line, you just made the dumbest coverage play I've seen all season from a Commander's corner, bro. And it was a dime from Russell Wilson to Mike Williams, but godly, if Marshawn Lattimore was there on that play, I guarantee you he doesn't allow that, and we end up winning the game, man. I mean, I just don't understand how Benjamin St-Juste got flat-footed there. I mean, let's also point out the fact that he had over 10 yards of cushion on him as well. How you get beat deep on 3rd and 9, and you're on like the, what is that, like the 23-yard line? And that boy Mike Williams is on like the 33-yard line himself, 34-yard line maybe. Like, golly, Benjamin St-Juste, 10 yards of coverage. You're flat-footed. I mean, how do you even allow that? And then, like, if anything, allow the first down. That's cool. That would suck, but at least you don't lose the game. We're up 6. So if we could just hold them to 3 points, Hey, either way, we're good to go. But you just allow a touchdown in that situation is crazy. But Benjamin St-Juste, of course, like I already told y'all, who dislocated his finger in the loss against Pittsburgh yesterday, he said, quote, "Sometimes I get caught up in trying to make the play so much that I try to guard everything. In these situations, you got to pick and choose, and you've got to pick the right option. You got to play the fade. That's what he likes to do. That's what Russ is good at." I mean, you would just think that Benjamin St-Juste wasn't a part of the film session and the team meetings, defensive scheme meetings, strategy meetings all week. Because coming into this game, everybody knew all they do is run the ball and take deep shots. That's it. So what do you think when the game is on the line they're going to try to do? Take a deep shot. I mean, golly, how do you give over 10 yards of cushion and still get burned? If y'all see the screenshot of the play, you will be disgusted. And man, this is why I think that honestly, when Marshon Lattimore comes back, and when he not even come back, when he makes his debut, hopefully against the Eagles Thursday night, because boy, we need him against A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I think, honestly, Mike Sanford still will be the other starting outside corner, and Noah Benogany will be a slot corner. And Benjamin St-Juste may play quite a bit. I'm not acting like he's about to get benched and barely play, like Michael Davis or Emmanuel Forbes level. But I think Mike Sanford still, you put him on the second best guy, like a Devonta Smith, and then you put Marshon Lattimore and A.J. Brown, and I think that's the way we work for the rest of this season, all the way through this playoff run. Benjamin St-Juste can be a part of the rotation, but when moments are just at its brightest, for you to fold like that is the reason it's time to go, bro. And also, shouts out to Rep the District for reminding us that Benjamin St-Juste is who we got with the 3rd round pick that we traded and got for in the Trent Williams trade when we traded him to the 49ers. So just to let you know, we traded away Trent Williams, got a 3rd round pick, used that 3rd round pick on Benjamin St-Juste just to make that loss hurt just a little bit more. Like, I mean, when I saw that, I was disgusted. Like, I was already disgusted about the loss, but just to remember that basically we traded Trent Williams for Benjamin St-Juste is insane. Also, shouts out to No Pressure. I completely agree with when he said this at GON_ride on Twitter. Let me be clear, St-Juste is not the sole reason why we lost the game, but St-Juste is always a reason why we lose games. And that's why I'm so annoyed. I completely agree. We can't put all of this on him, but it seems like every time we struggle, Benjamin St-Juste plays a large part in it. Also, shouts out to Jayden Daniels MVP, because I completely agree. Unless Benjamin St-Juste miraculously turns into an all-pro and becomes a lockdown corner when St. Lattimore returns, as he's covering, I guess, number 2 receivers, it's probably safe to assume that the team will part ways with him in the offseason and draft and sign another elite cornerback. Please, bro, please. It's to the point where I'm like corner in the 1st round, dog. It's really making me mad. Again, I can see why Pro Football Focus gave Benjamin St-Juste the higher grade out of all of our corners, but at the end of the day, if you can't step up when it matters most, I don't want you here. Now, moving on to safety, Jeremy Chinn balled out. That interception alone was great. I don't know if y'all saw where he started on that play, but the range he showed on that was insane. Then the Quan Martin forced fumble was super clutch. Jeremy Chinn on the fumble recovery, that was elite. So shouts out to the safeties there. Of course, it's really hard for me to really dive into what the safeties did without the all 22, because the live broadcast doesn't even show these guys most of the time. They're zoomed in on the quarterback and the offensive line and defensive line and things like that in the box and like the trenches and everything like that. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at like the all 22 to really know what Jeremy Chinn and Quan Martin did today. But Quan Martin, again, was like our 4th highest graded Pro Football Focus player, so he must have had a pretty good game in coverage as well. But Jeremy Chinn had 6 tackles, 1 passes defensed, 1 interception, and 1 fumble recovery, so I felt like he had a great day, man. Jeremy Chinn had an elite day last week against the Giants, but I still felt like he had a really good day, and he's more than earning that next contract. Remember, he's on a 1-year prove-it deal right now, and I think he's proving it quite well. Special teams-wise, I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus had a muff punt already. Before the one that he fumbled and lost, and the Steelers recovered and ended up scoring a touchdown. He had a muff punt before that. He just happened to recover it. Then soon after that, he had the muff punt where he actually dropped it, and then they ended up scoring a touchdown off of it. So multiple muff punts from Olamide Zaccheaus in that one game, and one of them led to 7 points. And remember, we lost by 1 point. Just to keep reminding you of that, of all of the small mistakes that were made, all of the different various mistakes that were made. If we just made one less mistake, you probably win this game. Ridiculous. But also shouts out to the Steelers and their special teams, because they had a great play drawn up. Great play, but they just ended up, the receiver just didn't catch it. Also, shouts out to Tressway. He had a 74-yard punt in that game, y'all. A 74-yard punt. And it was like 2 feet away from being arguably the best punt of all time, because it barely went out of the end zone right at the corner of the sideline. Just 2 feet closer, just further up, and it would have been arguably the best punt we've ever witnessed in our lifetime. Insane stuff. So Tressway did his part. And I'm not gonna lie, the Steelers punter had some pretty bad punts in that game, so I was happy to have Tressway on our side. But of course, again, shouts out to Olamide Zaccheaus for the muff punts. And it was crazy too, because we were in a situation, we were talking about this in the live stream, like, who do we turn to? Like, if Olamide Zaccheaus can't return punts, who's next? I mean, I figured, I guess maybe we give Luke McCaffrey a try, because we tried it in the preseason a little bit. But, I mean, Austin Eckler, especially with Brian Robinson out, we need him too much on offense, and he's already our best kick returner, so I don't know about throwing him out there in punt returns. Some people bringing up Jamison Crowder. He's on IR. I mean, maybe Mike Sanford still, he probably still has that in his bag from his time in college, maybe. So I don't know, man. I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus, bro, honestly, I've been struggling to try to figure out who I want to blame the most for this game, like if I had to rank them. I think Olamide Zaccheaus is probably my number one. I know Benjamin St-Juste is going to be a lot of people's number one, but honestly, Olamide Zaccheaus is my number one, dog. I mean, there's a lot of people to blame from this loss. Again, Johnny Newton, the offsides, to pretty much technically lose the game. The offensive line couldn't block. Jayden Daniels had one of his worst games. The receivers were dropping passes left and right. Zach Ertz, no yak Zach. Benjamin St-Juste giving up the worst plays at the worst times. Defensive pass interferences left and right. I mean, there were so many things that we could blame. I'm sorry, Olamide Zaccheaus is the biggest blame, because it would be different if you only muff punts, and then you could be like, okay, well, he gave the Steelers 7 points, but at least he made up for it on offense. No, because he was dropping passes on offense as well. The guy just had butterfingers all game, whether it was as a receiver or a returner. I just don't get it. And shouts out to We Want Dallas, because I completely agree, man. There's no bigger win probability flip on one play in a football game than a turnover on a muff punt. It's a turnover plus a 40-plus yard field position change for the opponent. I mean, it's literally unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable type of stuff. But shouts out to Percy Butler, because he was out there trying to make plays on special teams. He was getting down there and making some elite special teams tackles in the open field. Also, shouts out to our kicker. Zane Gonzalez made every kick we asked him to. Every kick, man. Shouts out to him, man. He made all 3 of his extra points and made all 2 of his field goals, and all of them were like 41 plus. I believe like one was 47-48, the other one was like a 41-yarder. So now we went from no kickers with K. York week 1 to now we have 2 really good ones. Austin Cyborg's our franchise kicker, but Zane Gonzalez off the bench, off the couch, isn't bad at all, man. And I mean, Dan Quinn, for good or bad, he's extremely loyal. And even with Olamide Zaccheaus literally giving the Steelers the game, he continued to throw him back there, punt returner, during the game. We'll see what happens throughout the week in practice, even though we only have a couple of days, so I doubt they make the change going into Thursday. But if these struggles continue, I would not be surprised at all if we have a new punt returner to go into the game after that. I believe it's the Cowboys, which will be like 10 days later, because again, we play the Eagles Thursday, and then we play the Cowboys the next Sunday after that. So again, Dan Quinn just let Olamide Zaccheaus keep going back out there as punt returner. That's the personality of Dan Quinn, to believe in his guys and let them fix their own mistakes. And also, shouts out to Austin Eckler, man. He had like 2 really good returns in this game, and sadly, I don't think our offense capitalized off of any of them, so that was really annoying. Really, really annoying. And again, shouts out to Percy Butler again, because he was the team captain, one of the 3 team captains we had coming into this game, and then he made an elite special teams play out there, so that was why. That validated why he was captain. Now, before we get up out of here, y'all already know I have some random updates for y'all, but I also have other people's reviews and breakdowns of the game, some of the thoughts that they left on Twitter, and I agree with a lot of these. I don't agree with them 100%, so I'm gonna let you know where I agree and where I disagree, but I just always feel like it's a good thing to like bring in other points of views on games like this after games. So shouts out to JP Finley. He said Commanders have played smart, clean football all season, didn't against Pittsburgh, and it cost them. Chance to flip that comes fast on Thursday night. It sucks. This is our most mistake-ridden game all season on both sides of the ball, and we still only lost by 1 point to a team that's now 7-2. Like, I feel like there's reasons to be optimistic, because we literally beat ourselves more than the Steelers beat us, in my personal opinion, but it is what it is. Also, Shouts out to Rio Robinson because he brought up this point. People were talking about the passing chart from Jayden Daniels. He said he put the ball in the money behind the sticks to extend the game, and the starting tight end just dropped to his knee and sold him. Despite an off day, he put us in a position to win. Somewhere in this word soup, it should be said. So he wanted to make sure that Jayden Daniels got his credit for doing at least enough to where we technically should have won the game, and we can't blame him despite how bad the passing chart looks, especially with all of the drops. Also, shouts out to Bleeding Burgundy and Gold for saying defense stepped up today. We're not blaming them unless it's Benjamin St. Juste. You can blame him all you want. And I mean, that's a fair argument to make, man. Outside of Olamide Zaccheaus' muff punt, I mean, that's 21 points allowed to the Steelers. And then if Benjamin St. Juste isn't just horrible at the worst time, technically that's 14. So the defense did play overall fairly well. Also, shouts out to Zach Selby. Tough way to lose a game. You never want the outcome to be decided by mental mistakes, but it's a brutal reminder for the Commanders that against good teams, every moment matters and there's no room for mistakes. I feel like this is the game that's going to hurt the most and we're going to learn the most from, which actually has me a little bit excited moving forward. Like, this is the one that's going to make everybody focus. Like, if there were any chance that our win streak was getting to anybody's head somehow, where anybody was starting to overlook opponents and we were starting to feel ourselves and thinking, oh, we're one of the best teams in the NFC, this is the game to bring you back down to earth. And this is a hard lesson to learn for us to, and I'm pretty sure this will stick in the back of people's minds forever. No matter how much they try to push a loss like this to the side, this is going to be a constant reminder, probably even for the rest of their careers, to never lack, basically. Also, shouts out to Nick Ackridge. He said, bad loss. Jayden was off for the first time all season. O-line struggled. Terrible spot will be what's talked about, and it should be because it was a terribly outdated system. But Washington had opportunities to put that away way earlier in the game. Remember, we were up 10 at a certain point in that game in the second half, and we just could not put it away. Really sucked. We had all of the momentum and everything, home crowd, all of that. Also, shouts out to Mason Kinahan. So many miscues throughout the entire game. I'm not blaming this one solely on Johnny Newton or Benjamin St. Juste, even though both were a part of it. So many other little things that all three sides of the ball struggled with today. Felt it coming all week, but now we look ahead to Thursday. I agree. Then, shouts out to Ryan Cooley at Cooley's Takes. He said 2 quick takeaways. Number 1, Zaccheaus should be done as punt returner. Luke McCaffrey needs to be back there. That's what I was guessing during the live stream. We'll see. And then number 2, St. Juste should absolutely be on the bench when Lattimore is healthy. Let's get it. Also, shouts out to Al Galdi. He tweeted, the Commanders are running on fumes right now. Banged up big time. Next game is just in 4 days. The absolute latest that an NFL team can have a bye week is week 14. Washington is this season inexplicably has a week 14 bye for the 3rd consecutive season. Absurd, man. It just seems like the NFL doesn't like us. Now that Jayden Daniels and this Commanders offense, and really this Commanders team as a whole, is a proven product, maybe the NFL will start to like us, but I feel like they assign our bye week last. I feel like they make sure all of the good teams that are exciting to watch, they want them to be healthy for the playoffs and things like that, to bring in views, which bring in money, so they make sure those guys get good bye weeks, and then all of the other leftover teams just get whatever bye weeks are available. I feel like moving forward, they're going to stop hating on us because we keep having the latest bye week possible for 3 weeks straight. I completely agree with Al Galdi. We can blame the refs for a lot of things. We can even blame the NFL league office and the schedule makers for a lot of the things that we've been dealing with as well. Also, shouts out to Commanders Realm. You know he always provides a lot of points. His thoughts on today's loss versus Pittsburgh. He said, Jayden played a good game. He had very little help from his pass catches outside of McLaurin. I think I counted 6 drops, but there may have been more. I think it ended up being like 10, just to let you know. Also, I don't really know where to start with St. Juste. If he's not getting flagged, he's getting burnt by any receiver on the depth chart for a huge gain. That's a good point, too. That wasn't even George Pickens. That was Mike Williams. And, like, torn ACL Mike Williams. Like, golly, man. And even before the torn ACL, he was never that fast. Insane. Pittsburgh shut the run down for the most part, but they really missed Brian Robinson today. Got to get him back Thursday. I agree. Zaccheaus should be benched as a punt returner. I'm not sure on the status or the situation for Crowder, but it would be nice if we can get him back. I agree. Penalties were a problem. Newton's game-losing gaff aside, there was a lot of yellow thrown, and a lot of it was deserved. Overall, felt it was a very undisciplined game. I agree. McLaurin had yet another spectacular day. Thank you. Gonzalez wasn't a problem. That was a sigh of relief. I'm surprised. Jeremy Chin was a force for the 2nd week in a row. He and Fowler have earned 2 contracts here, second contracts here. I completely agree. Re-sign Dante Fowler and Jeremy Chin, please, both on 1-year proven deals. I think they've proven it already halfway through the season. And then 7-3, Philly in 4 days. Got to be healthy for that one for sure. And that's my biggest concern going up to that game, health. That's literally it. Outside of that, I feel like we should win. I feel like we're the better team, but health concerns me right now, especially if Marshawn Lattimore can't even go. Shouts out to 10 Top Podcast. He said, nothing about today's game was a moral victory or encouraging. We knew they could beat the Steelers. They had a 10-point lead in the third quarter and just gave it away. This was a very good team that should have won but made too many mistakes. We got to stop acting like underdogs. I completely agree. Shouts out to Commander's Realm. He said, today felt like the opposite of the Bears game. They were the better team and deserved to win against the Bears. That was not the case today. While they were able to score and force some turnovers, they were sloppy, undisciplined, and got beat in critical moments. Tough loss, but not undeserved. Then you have Grant Paulson for the last random opinion here, for the last other people's opinion that we're going through before we get to the random notes as well. Grant Paulson said, I feel better about the Commanders after today. Still is a 7-2 coming off of a bye week. I really want to make sure we emphasize that. Washington was without his running back 1 and 2 of his top 3 offensive tackles, and they took the Steelers to the brink. No need for a moral victory as it's a loss, but if this game was revealing, it was revealing in a good way. Honestly, I'm looking at this very optimistic, the same way as Grant Paulson is. I think if anything, we should be proud of how that game ended, because if anything, you know that against one of the best teams in the AFC, you should have beat them, and you beat yourselves, and you had a lot of injuries, and they had an entire bye week, 2 weeks to prepare for us when we didn't. So I feel like we deserve a lot of credit. There's a lot of ways to look at this. Of course, again, no moral victories, but there's a lot of ways to look at this to say, hey, man, that Commanders team is actually really serious. I'm pretty sure Steelers fans definitely respect us now. Even with as much trash as they talk leading up to that game, you got to respect the Commanders after barely escaping with a 1-point win like that. Also, shouts out to Nikki Javali. She said the paid attendance at Northwest Stadium was 66,192. That's the most she's seen in years. Also, shouts out to the Commanders PR staff for honoring John Kahn for his 500th career game covering the Commanders. Big shouts out to him, man. He had his wife and his 2 sons there as well. Shouts out to the Commanders organization for doing that. That was a beautiful moment. Also, Dan Quinn after the game said that his team is tough and they have a lot left under the hood. He said he hopes that the missed opportunities will be the lessons applied and that those missed opportunities sting the most. I completely agree. Also, Dan Quinn said that the 24-hour rule is in effect after a loss. He said this one stings a lot. He wants the guys to feel that, learn from it, but with the short week, they've got to move on quickly. I agree. Definitely learn from it. And then also Samuel Cosme said, quote, there's nothing more than I want to do than to beat Philly. So they're going to have a pretty angry team on their hands to deal with on Thursday, unquote. And I love that quote. That's exactly how everybody should feel. Whatever anger, regret you feel from this game, take it out on Philadelphia Thursday. I love that type of quote, that type of leadership and mentality from Samuel Cosme. I completely agree. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson for this. The Commanders will go into Thursday's night game against Philly, a half game behind in the division. Washington has led the NFC East for going on straight 8 weeks now, chasing from the first time with first place on the line in 4 days. Also want to add, before we get up out of here, don't forget, even though the Eagles are first in the division for only 4 days right now, I'm talking about trash. We're about to beat them on Thursday night. We still play the Eagles twice. So let's just handle our business, because we beat them, we'll win the division, plain and simple. But even on top of that, the Eagles still have to play the Steelers, the Ravens, and I believe the Rams as well. So if we handle our business and win the games we're supposed to, and specifically beat the Eagles at least once, but say we beat them twice, the division is cooked. We got the division. That's easy money. Because again, they still have a tougher schedule to end the season than we do. We definitely have tougher opponents than they do. Again, they still have to play the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Rams on top of having to play us twice. That's 5 very tough games. So, hey man, handle our business. We'll be good to go. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had to let my voice come back. I don't know why I lost my voice worse than I normally do after live streams, but my voice was not back until like way late last night, to the point that it was just like, man, I'm ready to go ahead and go to sleep. So I figured I'll just go ahead and wait till the next morning, afternoon to go ahead and knock out this video. So now it's finally done. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Do you agree or disagree with any of my points? Did you notice anything that I didn't? Was I wrong about anything? Of course, let me know how you feel about how optimistic I am about this team moving forward. Are you walking away from this game optimistic about our future, or are you down about the mistakes and how we beat ourselves? Let me know where you are mentally and how you feel about this Commanders team as a whole after an L like that at home to the Steelers. Let me know how you feel about everything. Of course, I really appreciate y'all. Be on the lookout for more videos. I'm gonna try to come out with another video later on this evening / tonight, so be on the lookout for that. I really appreciate y'all, and I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.